And good afternoon. Very warm welcome to Lunchtime Learnings. It was my absolute pleasure to welcome Sophie Lang onto Lunchtime Learnings this morning. Sophie has an agency down in Cornwall and is the letting expert and Cornwall-based property professional that set up her own business 11 years ago, has gone from herself to 10 colleagues, and from to now manage over 500 properties, which I think is an absolutely incredible achievement. So congratulations to you. That is brilliant. So welcome. So I know I've just introduced you and given a few bits away, but tell us a little bit about yourself as well, anything that people may not know. Just before you start, there's two things I love what you said. Yeah. So you're the local lettings expert and you're a property professional. I love that language because most people say they're estate agents or letting agents. Just out of interest, why did you and how did you come up with those words?
So although I obviously I'm predominantly lettings, I have worked in a estate agency across the board. So I have, I've worked in sales offices. I deal with property in general. It's not just lettings based. Our job entails a lot more than that, even though it's lettings. So property covers a wide range of things, everything from commercial HMOs. I think when people see lettings, they do put you in a little box of you do just tenancy agreements, but the job's a lot more than that. So I see myself as a property professional, more rounded person, I hope.
And that's great. But for me, I just love the language because I think we are all property professionals, whether we're dealing with people's biggest tax-free assets or whether we're helping landlords maximize their investments. Absolutely. Actually, we are property professionals. So tell us how you first started then.
So I started many years ago. I was at university. I was actually going to be a solicitor. That was my big aim in life. I loved that vein. I like legislation. So I went to South Wales and I studied for my law degree. Whilst I was doing that, I used to work part-time in a letting, a small independent letting agency, just part-time admin. So, doing all the phones, viewings, little bits like that, but kind of on the side. Once I got my degree, I got accepted onto the legal practice course. So I took the next step to become a solicitor. That was my focus. But due to a family change, I had to come back to Cornwall for a little bit. And I basically deferred a year. And I thought, I'll take up my part-time job as full-time. So I took up full-time as a negotiator and I never looked back. I think that year I really enjoyed getting out there, seeing people, and I kind of realized how much was involved with the job that was kind of legal linked with tenancy agreements and contracts and the law. I mean, this was 16 years ago, so there wasn't as much law, but there still was. And I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the people, and it meant I could stay in Cornwall. Because obviously one of the downsides to kind of the legal profession is there's not as many openings professions available and you kind of generally have to leave the area, and I love Cornwall. So I started full-time and I ended up skipping my option to go back onto the legal practice course, and I stayed with my the little independent called Hunters for Homes, tiny little office tucked away in Falmouth, ticking along with residential lets. I really enjoyed it. I was there for a few years and then we got purchased by a corporate. So our portfolio was purchased and they kept us on. Well, there was only 3 of us, but they kept us on and we got absorbed into Miller Countrywide in Falmouth. So I saw a whole different side of agency, going from a little independent run by a couple who just kind of been doing it for a few years. It was their pension pot, to, corporate, which was a lot more target focused and on a much more larger scale. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed learning. I always enjoy learning, and you did get more opportunities with learning with corporate. A lot more training. You learn a bit more about various aspects we hadn't done before, like insurance, sales and mortgage and all of that side of it. And we worked in a sales office, which I hadn't done before either. So I learned off the sales team there. I was there for a good few years. I came their top neg for the Southwest, which I loved. And then 3 of the estate agents I was working for branched off and opened Lewis Haughton Wills. And then they took me aside and said, please, would you come and open our lettings department? So 2011 it was, January, I walked into this office, laptop in hand, sat on a sofa. I didn't even have a desk. Sat on a sofa from scratch and went, right, let's see how I can change it. I was only 25, so slightly naive, probably. But I think after working for an independent and then into a corporate, I think at that time Miller Countrywide started to split more. So they outsourced a lot of their procedures, and it lost the human element for me. And I enjoy dealing with the clients day to day, speaking to them and getting to know them, and you give them a better service by knowing what their personal requirements are. I do feel with corporate, nothing against corporates, they do a brilliant job. I just felt that more it was about figures and numbers and not about the person anymore. So I opened in 2011 on my own and thought, right, let's give it a go. My estate agent colleagues knew nothing about lettings. They basically went, here you go, you're director of lettings, give it a bash. So yeah, I was naive, but I knew what I was doing. I'd been doing the job for a long time, and I'm quite a pragmatic person. I sat down, made plans about what I needed to do, and I wanted to make it a success. And I did have naturally some landlords follow me because obviously they had moved from an independent to a corporate, not necessarily by choice. And obviously I'd made relationships with these people for a long time. So naturally I had some people come with me, but I had to graft and I had to work on my own till I got up to 50, 60 lets. And then I took on my first staff, which was also extremely daunting. Never done HR before. Had to interview. At 25, I was interviewing people a lot older than me, which was daunting because some people didn't like that very much. Obviously, having a superior that's younger, even though I had the experience, I was still age-wise. I wasn't, experience. Unfortunately, they do look at you as how old you look, and instead of exactly how much you've been doing it for. So that was a little daunting. Taking on staff has probably been my biggest challenge over the years, I think, as we've grown. It's the side of the business I've had to learn ad hoc. But yeah, I saw a niche in the market where we were. I was doing well on residential. And one of my competitors closed down their student lettings department because we have a big university here, which is it's Falmouth University, but it also has aspects of Exeter University. So it was growing and it got its university status. And yeah, one of my nearest rivals decided that the HMO world was a bit too complicated and they didn't really want to go into it. So I saw a bit of an opportunity and thought, right, let's do some courses, learn some things and see what I can do. And I took on my first student property in end of 2011. So I was only still in my first year. And now that's grown to quite a big part of the business. So now we've got 165 student houses. So about 600 students we look after. And then all the rest of the properties are residential. So we've got two arms of the lettings business. I really enjoy the HMO side. I know a lot of agents shy away from it because it's quite complex. But again, it kind of feeds into my learning side. I enjoyed learning, getting the courses up together and kind of seeing where that open was. I also saw an opening with students where they were being treated by some as a lesser tenant. They were tarnished with a brush of their students, they're this, they're that, don't deal with them, they're messy. And I felt, because I'd been a student myself, I felt that was not right and that they should have the same standard of accommodation that everybody else has. And obviously legislation's changed in recent years to kind of up standards, but I wanted students to have a good standard accommodation and a good level of service as well, not to be palmed off because they're students. So it's really nice to be able to offer that kind of service, and we grew naturally through that because we became quite popular as a accommodation provider. So yeah, now we're really busy. Obviously with the HMO changes, we've now got 65 licensable HMOs, which obviously come with a new level of service that's required. But again, we enjoy it. We've got the best in the agency. I make sure all of our staff are well trained and got qualifications so they know exactly what they're doing. I think that's one of my tips is making sure the staff you bring on, you train them correctly and make sure they know what they're saying and know what they're doing, and that they're giving the correct advice to your clients, because that's what they want. They hire an agent to know what they're doing so they don't have to. So we've grown and grown, and we've reached a really good point after 11 years. We're going well in our local, are well known, got a good reputation, and we've got a really good team, a strong team. So really proud.
Good. So you should be. Right. All you've done is just given me loads more questions to ask you now. So thank you. So I'm going to unpick everything you said. So I'm going to go back right to the beginning where you became the top neg. So yes. Congratulations. What tips? So there's people watching this that are maybe just starting, getting into lettings, getting into sales. What do people need to do to become a top negotiator? I mean, you obviously had some fantastic qualities to get you there. I love the fact everything you keep on bringing down to is training and self-development. And I think you're spot on. I think there's a massive, massive lesson here. You are definitely a self-developer, not a shelf developer, where you go on courses and everything gets put on the shelf. That's fantastic. So we'll talk about your learning in a bit, but I'm just fascinated to know what qualities do you feel people watching this need to be to become a top negotiator, please?
I think for a negotiator, one of the most important assets you have is your personality. People buy into your personality. To be, obviously, I was a listing neg, but you have to forge relationships with your client, the landlord, and tenants, because they have to trust you and know that you're looking for property. And it's spotting those opportunities where there's not necessarily an obvious opportunity. So, you know, if a tenant approaches you, or a potential tenant, they're looking for a certain property, it's looking what you've got available and thinking, oh, they wouldn't look at that on paper, but let's get them through the door and have a look, because it could be something they like. Obviously, markets have changed. Down here, we are lucky. Especially at the moment, low stock, you don't have to encourage many people through the door. They want to get there. But back when I was doing that, you had to work harder to let properties, and you had to get out there, meet people, and really be a people person, and make those matches. It's also about being in the office and being really present. There's people that go and do their job and it's just a job. So they walk in the door, they sit, they answer the phone, they do that. But it's going above and beyond for people to actually pick up that phone, make the call. I do find a lot of people now rely on emails and kind of synthetic conversation, whilst actually talking to a person makes a really big difference. Find out about them a bit more, and you can then match them to property better. I do think it's really about making those relationships with people to make yourself stand out.
Okay, why do you think it is people are reluctant now to pick up the phone and just utilize email? Because I agree with you 100%. You know, just by having conversations, actually seeing you, building that relationship, building that rapport, to me is so much better.
Yeah, I think people, it's become easier to, you know, send an instant message than pick up the phone. I think the art of conversation is lessing. I think that, I mean, looking at younger people, obviously when I was younger, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have social media, so I can't imagine living in that world where everything's quite digital. But we're finding it with our younger tenants now, our student tenants. They do prefer digital. They want their application form so they can fill out on their phone, but they lose the art of conversation a little bit, and I feel you get more of someone from their conversation. You can misread an email or a text, you can misread the tone, you can misinterpret it, whilst if you're talking face to face, it's very difficult to do that, because you've got body language and expression and tone that you don't get in an email, and I think you get a better result. I mean, with our clients, I would encourage staff to pick up the phone to them if we want something, i.e. if we need something doing, or we're suggesting a proactive maintenance, for example. You're more likely to get that if you speak to them face to face or on the phone than on an email. On an email, it's very easy to disregard someone, whilst face to face you can't.
I agree. Okay, brilliant. So thanks for sharing all those tips to be what it takes to be a top negotiator. Then you started off, I appreciate you, obviously you were very good at your job, because some landlords came came with you, which is always nice, and makes it easy. But again, there's people on here, you know, you've mentioned actually that stock is a challenge at the moment to find new landlords. You obviously have ended up over the last 11 years building up to over 500 managed properties. What tips can you share with letting agents watching this now to get more landlords?
Yeah, landlords is a trust building exercise. They have to trust you. This is their asset. This is, this is not just a paper exercise for them. This is something that is either their main income or supplements their income. So they have to trust you to look after it and know what you're doing. I think looking for examples, a lot of landlords I've nurtured over time, and I know my team are excellent at nurturing landlords. I've got 3 young negs and they are fantastic at going out there, and you might get landlord let only because they're convinced that they can manage it, but you nurture that landlord over time and they will turn to fully manage eventually once they trust you and know that you do the job for them. Getting through the door is your first challenge. If I could get any of my negs through the door, I know we're pretty much that instruction will become ours if it's a landlord in a position, but it's getting them through the door. So our team are, especially at the moment in a low stock kind of situation, you have to go outside the box. You've got to look for leads where you wouldn't normally look for them. So at the moment we utilize social media, landlord groups, be that person that they come to for advice. If they go to you for advice and trust your advice, you'll get the instruction. So getting your name out there, like on my LinkedIn, where I'm Cornwall Property Professional, Cornwall Property Expert, like make sure your face is out there and people know who you are. Go to meetings, introduce yourself around. Your let-only landlords are a great source of instructions because they already like you. You've kind of got halfway there. You just need to convert it to full manage to show that their job is easier if they hand it over to you. But yeah, low stock market is a harder market, but there are ways and means, and there are properties and landlords out there. You just have to get your foot through the door, and I think trust and sharing your knowledge and showing that you care is one of the ways to do that.
And you make a really interesting point there. I know there's a lot of property investor networking groups out there, and I've had this conversation with people that actually run them and say, can you tell me how many letting agents turn up at these? And they say, I've never seen a letting agent out there. So for me, a property investor networking session, and I think you can just Google it and find one, whether there's in your area.
They're usually locally run, so you can find out when your nearest one is, and just turn up. And eventually, if you get in with the organisers, they might ask you to speak about some particular issue that's in your area at the moment. We had Article 4 come in a few years ago, so come and speak, tell them about it. If they then hear you talk and you care, and they'll talk to you more, you're the person they go to, so you're more likely to get their instruction when they decide they are investing or that they don't want to look after it themselves if they're self-managing.
So you also spoke about social media to try and find landlords. Now there's a friend of both of ours called Megan18, who's very good at that.
She's very good at that.
And if anybody's not following Megan18, they need to. She does the most amazing TikTok videos, but they're very educational. They're also a bit of fun as well, but there's a serious point to them. For me, we were saying beforehand that actually Megan's social profile has been raised considerably, where she's now the most popular person in the estate agency and letting agency that everybody wants to interview and have on their podcasts.
And that's brilliant. And that's just from getting her face out there. And obviously she's got a great personality, so people warm to her immediately. But she is giving out good information, and people will go to her for advice. And already she's already halfway there because she's known and she's got following social media is a massive tool for people at the moment.
Okay, so again, and I've seen there's another agent who was on Property Industry Eye. I think if you go in and type in TikTok there's somebody again that gives like really useful tips in a fun way, all on compliance, helping landlords. And you're right, you're building up this trust. You're showing that you've got that estate agents and letting agents, they do have personalities as well. They are exceptional at their job. Which I think is, absolutely fantastic. But again, on social, what else are you doing? So we can see what Megan's doing. Is there anything that's working really well from you on social?
Yeah, a lot for me on social, because obviously I'm not as confident in front of the camera, and not as, in fairness, I need Megan to give me some TikTok tutorials because it's not a medium I'm on. I do have a profile, but I haven't done anything much on it yet. But yeah, for me, it's getting involved in the conversation. Make sure people see your name when you come up, when you're talking, when there's been an issue or an article, or especially in the local Facebook groups where you've got landlords on. If you're part of those, there's so many groups you can join that are local to you of landlord networks. And if you're in there having the conversation, answering questions, if people have got them, and giving advice, then that gets your name out there. And I think that's really important. I mean, it takes half an hour of your day in the morning to check through your Facebook groups and see if anyone's put a question, and just put a response and say, oh, give me a call if you've got any questions. Just kind of get your name out there and your face. And if you're giving the advice, then you demonstrate you know what you're talking about. So you're more likely to get people to come and talk to you.
Yeah, you're that trusted property professional that you talked about, that local property expert at the beginning. And again, you know, very topical, the Court of Appeal and the Norfolk case. You know, again, that's something that as letting agents, you can get out there and start talking about it and show that you know stuff that's very topical that's going on, that obviously is going to help people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially something like that, which landlords generally wouldn't be overly aware of unless they, you know, read all the industry kind of news. But yeah, things like that, it's good to show you're on the pulse, you know what's going on, you're wary, and you can keep your landlords informed so they know what happens before the general public may do.
Brilliant, thank you. So going from yourself to employing over 10 colleagues, you said as a challenge. So,
yes.
So again, what lessons have you learned on recruitment? Again, what advice can you give when you're interviewing and looking for the right people? So tips on those, please.
The main thing for me is I first was looking for people with experience and wanted someone who already fit into the box of they've been a neg for so long. But I found that those people don't necessarily exist. Recruitment is really hard in our industry to find people with the experience that want to move from where they are. So for me, I found it more important to look for people with the transferable skills. So you've got to look for the key skills you need in this area. So depending on where you're recruiting for, so negotiators, you need someone with really good customer service, communication skills, eager to learn, enthusiastic, bubbly person. And it's all about personality, I feel, more than your direct experience. From property maintenance team, you need to be organized, you need to be able to communicate well. It's those key skills you need that necessarily won't come from direct experience, but come from experience in other roles. I mean, to be honest, everyone I have here in the office right now, none of them had previous experience in our sector, none of them. And the main things we look for were transferable skills and fit-in ability, which is a word one of my colleagues made up. But when you work as a team as closely as we do a job together. I feel lettings is extremely team orientated, unlike, you know, a estate agency, which can be a bit more one-man band and on your own. Lettings has to be a team effort, because you're all doing a job for the same landlord and you're all working towards the same aim. So all of our commissions and bonuses are all team because we work together. And you have to fit in with one another. We spend more time with each other than our own families. So you have to fit in with everybody and get on and be a team player. And it's worked really well to look for those things rather than the direct experience. And it means we've built a team that is also moldable. So I'm really big on giving your team continued professional development and also getting them qualifications. So my two managers, I have a compliance manager, just because we've got so many HMOs, it's really important to have someone who solely commits on compliance. And she's amazing. She will read legislation all day long. She's like me. We geek out over very boring pieces of paper. But it means we can then train our staff down and make it more, you know, manageable and more understandable. And I've got 4 of my staff already have their level 3 level 3 certificate in residential and lettings and property management. I'm almost got my level 4. I've got a couple more exams to go, and then my 2 managers are currently undertaking their level 4. They've just started. So we do a structure where all the staff get, because I think it's really important, if they've got that knowledge, that they've already got the skills, they just need the knowledge to be able to then implement it and obviously give our clients a good service. So we work really hard on CPD in our company, and giving them the tools to do their job.
And are they doing that during working hours?
Yes, yeah. We have a study room in our office. We're very lucky to have it's a small office that was being unused. We turned it into a study room so people could so we try and get staff to take at least an hour a week per staff member in that room, where they're either doing a webinar or doing some training we've implemented, or they're looking at they're studying towards an actual certificate. So like I said, all of them bar 2 staff are currently aiming towards their level 3. We also do monthly quizzes. We try and keep it light because obviously lettings can be a bit heavy, especially with the legislation at the moment. And not everyone takes information by just reading a sheet of paper and taking in. Some people prefer more visual or, more entertaining ways of doing things. So Charlotte, our compliance manager, she sets up every month. We do a quiz at the end of the month. So there's an afternoon where our office closes for training. We go into our conference room and we have a quiz on. She set a topic every month. For example, it would be right to rent checks was our last one. So we then organise a quiz. She gives them all the material, saying you'll be quizzed on this material, but we make it fun. She throws in a few general knowledge questions just to mix it up a bit. And there's prizes, and it's just they're learning, but not in that rigid way. And they take in the information a lot better. And it's good for a refresh for everybody. I do it. It's good for a refresh and everyone to know what's going on, and it also then opens up conversation, especially with like right to rent that can be a bit more grey in areas. We then open up conversation, we talk about it, and once people ask questions they learn more because they're genuinely interested. We found that works really well with the team. So yeah, really I enjoy it.
Do you know what? I love that. For me, the best agents practice before they play. They just don't turn up and talk to their landlords, and they don't have a clue about the right to rent or a gas safety certificate or the smoke detectors or carbon monoxide. You're trusted, you know what you're talking about. You don't go, let me come back to you. And I think it's brilliant. I think it's great to hear. For me as a trainer, it's very refreshing to hear that you're giving an hour a week per staff member. I think that's fantastic to go and study. You would what I describe as a learn it all business rather than a know it all business, which is fantastic. And I wish there were more companies out there that are doing it, because that's going to make a massive difference. What always gets me is, what do most people think about letting agents and estate agents? No swearing, but the truth is, we are, whether it's on sales, to be entrusted, well, sales and lettings, we're trusted to deal with people's biggest tax-free asset or to maximize their investment. And yet most people think estate agents are charlatans. But the amount of level of work that you have to put in for your level 3s, your level 4s, to make sure you're a specialist in HMOs, make sure you're a students lettings as well. I don't think people really understand what letting agents and sales agents do in particular. And if letting agents and estate agents can get that message out, then hopefully we won't be seen as charlatans. We'll be seen as trusted professionals, property professionals, local property experts in our field of expertise. So I think it's fantastic. I love the monthly quizzes as well, because that's going to sharpen everybody's skills on, and it's great. And the afternoon once a month for training, I think it's fantastic. So I can see why you are so successful.
I think that obviously we've got 2 departments. We've got our front of house negs and then our maintenance, but I feel you all need to have the same level of knowledge, because if you're going out to win an MA, you need to explain what we do on our compliance and our management side. And if you're a management talking to a landlord, they could have a property and you need to know about the front end, and you could get an instruction through meeting someone or talking to a tenant. I mean, we've won quite a few instructions from tenants who've become landlords and then instructed us because of how we dealt with them as a tenant. And that's really important to always be working both sides of the business all the time.
100%. So I can tell you're a firm believer in people being qualified. I know you're obviously part of the property executive for Cornwall region. So again, what does that involve? Why did you decide that? I know the answer because I can hear it and listen to your passion and your personality. But what's the benefits of joining an organisation, ARLA Propertymark, and what's stopping people from doing it, do you think?
I think Propertymark is a great organisation. It's I mean, during lockdown, I don't know what I would have done without Propertymark, to be honest, with the amount of information and lobbying they did during that time. But I've been a member since before then. For me, it's a stamp of showing that we strive to a higher standard, and that we care and we want to give a better service and be knowledgeable and make sure we're up to date on everything, and that we're doing all we can to show what we do. Propertymark is great because the amount of people, I mean, since I've become an executive, I didn't really know the behind the scenes stuff. The amount of work that Propertymark do is absolutely insane. I mean, from the top, Nathan, obviously is CEO now, he's doing an amazing job with getting the message out there and shouting about what Propertymark actually do. I mean, a lot of their work isn't just for their members, it's for the whole industry. Especially during COVID, when they lobbied, for business rate relief, and they lobbied for commissions to be included in furlough payments. That affected non-members as well as members, and they don't shout about it enough. So they're looking to change that. But I think, as an exec, my job is to be the feet on the ground. We're in the market every day, all day, in different areas of the country, because obviously we've got 30 to 40 execs and we're all across the country. So no market is the same. My market's completely different to, say, Megan's, who's in Reading. So it's good for Propertymark to feed that in, to know exactly what issues real agents and landlords are facing, so they know where to put their resources, they know what to lobby, they know what the biggest issues are at the time. So I feedback from members in Cornwall about the issues we're facing. So currently, as everyone is, low stock, but we've also got issues with short-term lets, holiday lets, and so that's kind of niche to our area and other seaside areas, but it's feeding back, so then Propertymark know what resources are needed and where they need to be putting their energy with government, and that's really important because they're working for all the members then, not just the ones they know about. They're hearing about the whole spectrum, and that's my job, is to feed back and be the eyes and ears for Propertymark in this area.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. So there's a little shout out for Propertymark and ARLA. So definitely, for me, I think we're going to go down the route where everybody needs to be licensed. So you're going to be a licensed letting agent or a licensed estate agent. So do it now. Get ahead of the game, especially with ROPA.
About how it's changed in our sector in the last even 10-15 years, then legislations, it's too right. I completely support the fact that we needed to be more regulated and property standards needed to come up, but the risks are so high now for landlords and sellers. We're talking large fines, we're talking prison sentences in some instances, especially on the letting side, if they don't do simple compliance. You need an agent that knows what they're doing, and they're your protection against that. And we are as professional as solicitors. The amount of legislation we need to know is the same as a solicitor that specifies in a certain area, say family law. It's the same level. We study as hard. It may not be, not a degree, but we're studying all the time, and we have to learn all the time and keep up to date. So that needs to be recognised. And the only way you can recognise that is by getting everyone to be, licensed and to have a qualification.
So, you mentioned that maybe Propertymark don't shout enough about that, but do us as letting agents shout enough about that to share and impart the knowledge? So again, we're talking about social media, and are we demonstrating to people a life in the day of Sophie? What Sophie has to go through to learn, and the compliance and all of this. So actually we're educating our landlords that you are dealing with a property professional, a local expert who's incredibly knowledgeable, But I think that's an opportunity for letting agents to get that message out more, to actually show, it may well be, I'm going to give you some ideas now, and you're going to go, oh, Stephen, I hate doing videos and social media. But actually showing that afternoon off, or somebody doing an hour for studying and what they're doing, and putting it on social, so that landlords actually understand what you're doing. That you just don't put a property on a portal and it lets itself. Actually, there's so much for and one of the things I spoke about on the estate agent podcast on sales, that I've got a 54-point plan of what you do for the services in your investment. And again, anybody listening to this, get in contact with me and I'll happily share that with you. Lettings, that's double, it's well over 100 things that you actually do when you win the instruction. But how good do we actually demonstrate that to the landlords to say, we're doing 104 things. I've got to make sure you're compliant with your gas certificate, your Legionnaires, your deposit, registering your deposit, your EPC, your gas safety, etc., etc. So again, I think there's a massive opportunity for people listening or watching to demonstrate that to people.
I agree, and it is changing. I think with social media now and more people jumping onto the TikTok and things, it is getting, the message is starting, but more needs to be done. Definitely, we need to be shouting more about what we do and how complicated it is, and and actually what we give back to everybody, because we're not, like you said, back in the 90s, you could sign a piece of paper and that'd be a tenancy agreement and hand over the keys and your job's done. It's nothing like that anymore.
Okay, my dog's joining in now, so I'm just going to shut the door. So one of them's opened it. There you go. So you can tell it's live. So, he doesn't like the Hoover. That's what it is. So, final question for you then, and thank you for being an amazing guest and sharing so much. You talk a lot about self-development and learning. Again, are there any good courses out there, webinars, books you've read, podcasts that you listen to that you would recommend to anybody listening or watching, please?
Yeah, I mean, there's some great content out there at the moment. There's some really good content creators as well. So Megan, obviously, we've spoken about her already, but she's got her Lettings in a Nutshell podcast, which is great. And she's got some really good guests and kind of talking about all aspects of lettings. In Cornwall, we have the Cornwall Property Podcast, which is great. A bit that I've been listening to recently. Lot focus on sales, but really good information in there. I do a lot of webinars. I mean, there's so much free content out there for agents now. You just have to pop into LinkedIn and there's, webinars from Good Lord, from Kerfuffle, obviously Propertymark. I mean, their resources are great. If you pop onto their website, they've got so many courses from business development to sales techniques to legislation. It's not just about learning the legislation. There's stuff about actually rounding yourself off as a better agent. I mean, they're doing courses on social media with Amanda O'Brien, which is great, about content creation and how to up your profile on social media. So yeah, I think LinkedIn is a great place to find these webinars and information.
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you so much for your time. You've been brilliant. I look forward to the next time we speak. You've got 1,000 managed properties, so no pressure, and you've tripled your colleagues as well. So thanks for your time. Have a lovely afternoon. If people want to get hold of you or have a chat with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Sophie Lang. You can also find me on Facebook and obviously at my office, but all my contact details are on LinkedIn.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. Thank you all for watching. Have a good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're watching it. And I look forward to you joining us on the next episode. Thanks very much. Have a good one. Bye.
Bye.